Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to begin our broadcast in just a few minutes. Thanks to all of you for getting ready to join our second version of our very important webcast right now, Client Retention Strategy in a Time of Global Crisis. So we'll be with you shortly. Thank you so much for being on, and in just a minute, we'll be live. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 2 sharp, and we're going to let the audience build for just 1 second. You know how this goes. Everyone gets the alert, and then they sign in a minute later. So we're going to hold tight just for 1 second as we get ready to take on this important conversation. Be sure to have a pen and paper or your mobile device to take notes. We're going to have a lot of good information. We'll also have this presentation available afterwards, both in a recorded version. We're recording every one of these, and also we're going to be glad to share the deck with anyone who is interested. We'll also be available to do a repeat for individual companies that would like a version of this simply for them. So we'll be back in just about 15 seconds. Okay, next time I'm going to come up with some really nifty music. A little concerned lately because a lot of the providers of that music are getting sensitive. I do have music I've purchased, so I might be doing that next time. We already have a fantastic audience online. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, especially at the end of what I know was maybe quite a chaotic week for some of you. We are in an unprecedented time, and that's why I thought it was important to create something timely and relevant for you that you can act upon right away. So I've labeled this client retention strategy at a time of crisis. Not trying to overcapitalize on the situation, but as I read through the automotive news headlines today, Group 1 releasing 3,000 people. AutoNation just this morning announcing a furlough of 7,000 employees. And many of you at least letting 25% or more of your staff currently go into furlough status. I know how difficult those situations are. Those are not made with haste, and those are not made without heart and concern for your people and the strength of your organization on the other side. So here we are today. And I had muted myself. So here we are. Client retention. We're going to start with a new end in mind. And right now I'm saying a big hello to lots of you around the country and even in Canada. Really good to see all of you on here today. It's important right now at a time like this that we all are ready to do whatever we can. That means also taking the top level of our skills and saying even those might need to be twisted. And take a look. Has anyone else lost audio? I think we're on. Are we on audio here now? Okay, thank you. You know what it helps? It helps if you don't accidentally hit mute on yourself rather than everybody else. So thanks all of you for understanding. It is me, your friend Lori online, and I don't have help here supporting me as I do this because, hey, social distancing. So thanks for the heads up. So let's think about, I got to close the questions out right now. I'm going to move them so that I'm not distracted right now. Here we go. So we joined for client retention in a time of crisis, and these strategies are going to be important. We got a lot of great feedback yesterday. It's important right now that whatever your retention strategies were prior, that you have new strategies in mind now. So let's go take a look at things that are happening. First of all, who am I? Some of you know me well, some of you don't know me at all. I started this company just over a year ago when it was time for me to make a decision to support vendors and dealers equally. Some people struggled with that concept, but for me, it's actually the most pure and true thing I can do based on the experience that I've had and my theory of we are better together. My better together theory comes from if dealers do not understand their vendors and the services and products that they deliver, they spend money, and we've all seen that they spend money and then they take it back because they didn't fully comprehend what they had bought. But vendors, I put this right back squarely on you. You had a relationship with one person in many cases, and sometimes that person leaves, or we made the assumption that that person was going to be able to carry it out, execute, and train the way you could, and it didn't happen. So I hold us both responsible, but I say that's both of our opportunity to work together and transform our partnerships. So that's where I come from with this. So that makes me, gives me the ability to speak on things like retention and churn because I see all sides of this. I've been called an industry strategist by many people. I care passionately about it. I take that passion to my keynote speaking. I deliver go-to-market strategy. I have a few companies that are in that position right now that I'm helping here and globally. I work on leadership development for you, corporate training, and data and behavior-based programming. That might help make sense for some people who are wondering, like, who am I? What is this I'm about? And what is it that I do? So those things categorize what I do. Where did I do it? I worked retail automotive for many, many years, building BDC departments before people knew what those were. Then I went on to several places, but highlights include I was a national trainer and speaker for cars.com in over 100 cities a year for several years running, met literally tens of thousands of wonderful dealer people and vendor partners. And with AutoNation, then I went nationally as well, variable ops and special ops and situations nationally there also. So now I stand here today ready and willing to help you the best I can from the viewpoint that I have, knowing that many of you are in a situation that's unenviable. And we have dealers and we have vendors online, and I'm proud of that because there's nothing in here that anyone cannot see, as with all of my work, and everything in here is hopefully mutually beneficial. I speak at a lot of events. Maybe I've seen you there. If you ever need help with any of these topics, and again, I'll forward this later. And I only put this on here. I didn't have this on here yesterday, but someone asked for more information on what do you do and where do you do it. This is what I do. And a lot of what I do comes out of my passion and commitment, in addition to the expertise that I've honed and the relationships that I have. I do what I do because I want to do it at this point in my life, and I feel called to lead when others are sometimes in a state of crisis. Even yet, I'm always learning. So right now, as I've been speaking across the country and listening to everyone the last couple of years, especially, we took a look at things like shared, autonomous, mobility, electric, and how they were hitting our marketplace. Words like Carvana and CarMax became four-letter words. We looked at digital marketing and online retail, and everyone called this disruption. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what disruption looks like. This sort of makes autonomous vehicles, that conversation, pale now. We are now, it does not matter what your political affiliation, your faith, your gender, what type of dealership you have, how long you've been in the business or not, this crisis is hitting us all. And this is disruption at massive scale. So as we start this conversation, I'd like to say to you, first and foremost, how are you doing? How are you doing? Because that's an important question right now. And that's the question that I want you to think about as you're talking to each and every one of your clients and each and every one of your employees. Show ultimate care and ask truly, how are you and how are your people doing? Whether that's the company that they work for or with, or the person is an employee of yours and it's them and their family. We'll go into why this is important later, but people have been shaken to the core right now as these attacks are coming from every front to varying degrees for people. So I got asked the question yesterday, where are my stats? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see a few things cited in here today, but the most important thing is that we take a close look at your own stats. The work that I do when I go in, now remember, this is a quick 45-minute highlights and tips on strategies for you to take on client retention, but I don't know your company. When I go in and do this work, I spend not hours, but days gathering the data, having conversations, understanding your company's objectives and understanding your clients and knitting that together with an entire strategy. There is no way I could, with integrity, deliver you stats on exactly how this is impacting you, what you should do, and what you can expect. So that is why right now you will see a conversation devoid of stats, but I want you to be actively thinking about your own stats, what has been real and what we should be working on in the near future. In near future, I don't talk about future, I'm talking about near future, what's right in front of us. So if any of you want to talk very specific stats, I gladly open myself up to doing that at the end of this conversation. We'll have time for some questions, or afterwards, my phone call, my phone number will be available, my email will be available also. So this is why, with integrity, I cannot deliver you sweeping stats on client retention strategies right now at this point, and I thank you for understanding. So leaders, right now, I want you to ask you to slow down and stabilize. It's going to be really important right now for your team. Then we can act. Only once we have our plan in place can we act. Dealers and vendors alike are making very quick decisions, sometimes out of necessity, but when you can and where you can, slow down, gather the troops together, whatever your cabinet of advisors looks like, and get comfortable asking to review, to have time to review each and every situation as it emerges, because they're not all the same, my friends. The things that are coming at us and the things, this is the word I'm using is fluid and also dynamic situations. These aren't things that we can say, oh, well, this has happened and now you can easily expect this. The rules have all changed. That's not how it's going. So right now, push back on your urge to react instantly, slow down, stabilize, gather others for information, and then go. Important to establish this. You're not the only one that's nervous. Your clients, those dealers are nervous. Your customers are nervous if you're a dealer on the line. They're all people after all. Here are the fronts. Most of them, I don't know, there might be others that are approaching them with this disaster at hand. Their personal health and safety, financial concerns, whether it's for an enterprise or an individual. What is the government doing at any given moment? It's incumbent on us to stay very up to date on what's happening and what you need to be doing next. Your staff, whether it's the team that the team that reports to you or the team around you, people are nervous. We don't always see the best behaviors out of people when fear is in place. So ambiguity has to take a back seat right now, and we'll talk about how important clarity is in the upcoming material here. And then timelines. My goodness, there's not a person of us on this call that can project any timelines. We've even seen on the government updates, the dates shift and shift and shift. And those timelines are only shifting into the future, and they're not moving upwards towards this current moment. So I would have you think about that as you're getting ready to make any decisions. Right now, I will tell you this. Here's what I'm hearing reported from dealers and vendors alike regarding retention and pricing. We are seeing the predominant amount of requests coming in for price reduction requests. I'd say it's at least 55–60% of our dealers are saying that. We're seeing some that are flat out canceling, whether it's out of necessity or it's because because the government shut them down, or they just weren't seeing the value in the product and decided it was just time to make another decision. We're also seeing people standing by. That's probably 20% are just like not saying much and they're not too worried. We are seeing some that are literally missing in action. We can't get a hold of them. We don't know where they are. We've heard reports of business leaders that aren't even in the country right now and are making decisions for their teams without being on hand. I think this is very careless and upsetting, unless, of course, they're docked on a cruise ship and not allowed to go into port. The bubble on the upper left, I want you to take a look at. This is the one that comes right down to the ground for my vendors. Some of your people, you think that they're making the phone calls. I want you to know they're not. They're not contacting their dealers. They're avoiding the situation and sitting in the corner hoping and praying that they don't get the call. Because if you look at the bottom right-hand side, they have questions. They're not even sure how to handle it, and they're not sure what's going to happen to them personally if they get those calls that are negative. So back to, there's a lot of ambiguity and there's a lot of fear out here. So here is Foster Strategies Group Retention Act. Before you start to take action, I'm assuming most of you are business leaders, or at least you're really great at your job. That's why you're on today. So let's take a look. First of all, first step, our current state. Events beyond our control are creating disruption from every front. Don't think that could possibly be more accurate of a statement. So right now, the important thing is for you to go through these ACT steps very logically and strategically. Take time and lay this out. We have several things under the A's, the C's, and the T's. But the most important thing is first step, and this is foundational. You can't go forward without this one, is assess the situation thoroughly. Communication. Some of you are thinking, oh, that's my communication to my client. Hold on, wait until you hear. And then your future state will involve transformation. I do want you to think about micro measurements of from X to Y by when. Like, what can you do in even limited amounts of time right now? Short-term goals right now are going to be really important. So assessing. You have to ask yourself what has happened. And I want you to say what has really happened. Not what does it feel like has happened. This is a time to take emotion right out of it. What has happened? What do I know? What don't I know? And what is impacting me and my clients and my people? The next step of that is what is imminent. So while we don't know the answers, there are things that are easy to anticipate that might happen next. Or you might whiteboard out, there are 5 possible next outcomes that could be occurring, again, whether it's from the government, the consumers at large, employees, your own decisions, what could be imminent. Circling back to, how am I feeling? Once you have those things down on paper or whiteboarded, ask yourself, how am I feeling? Why is this important? Because the more centered and confident and comfortable you are with these conversations, the more accurately you're going to be able to transfer this information to your teams and or to your customers. If you're not feeling well, go back to step 1, what has happened, what is imminent, and ask yourself, am I employing this ACT program in order to do this most successfully for others? Next question, super important, how is my team? I didn't put that one first because right now, sometimes we want to react. Some of you really care about your people, but until you have yourself strong right now, you've got to get that in place first, because just to say to your team, oh, everything's going to be okay, that's a false sense of security. And I promise you this, they're not believing it. So all of those good graces are gone out the window the second the notices start coming. Day 1, you say everything's fine. Day 2, you say, here's your notice. So I want you to think, how's my team? And I want you to start even looking at that team better than ever. Is this team, how proud are you of that team that you've built? Do you have them ready for this? And think about the gaps and what you need to cover with them right now. Now, as we shift into your clients, holy cow, because your team and you are going to be conducting many conversations with your clients. First thing, most important, is tone. I've had conversations with vendors recently about the tone. Tone, if you're jotting notes down, doesn't just include the voice of your words and your elocution. It goes to, like, what are these the right words? Are we really listening to what our client's concern or our employees' concern is right now? Or are we just saying what we feel needs to be said? Because accuracy is one thing. You might be saying it accurately, but connectivity is another thing. You've got to step back, read it and reread it. First, make sure it is accurate, and then it is time to make sure that this message is receivable from the listener and the reader's point of view. Some of you will be using tone in things like videos. So we've got physical, written and emailed communications. We also have a lot of people right now are using Skype, video, whatever, events like this. It's very important that you have the right people on there. Arrogance has to go in the back seat. Any tone of arrogance right now, even if those are what you consider the most brilliant people at your organization, if they do not have a tone of care and concern for your people, you're going to be doing yourself a disservice when you're putting out messages like this. Again, whether it's internally or externally. So tone is important on many levels. If you have body language in play, that will fall in under tone for getting this message across. Make sure these people practice, drill, and rehearse before they go live, and make sure that they are conducting themselves, even with their body language, in a point that is convincing that your message is accurate and doesn't, again, it's not counterproductive. Next, as we're talking about our clients, I want you to think about what do they need? Not even what do they want, what do they need most right now? Is it your collegiality? Is it your listening ear? Is it a price reduction? Is it hands on deck for helping them with training, whether virtually or in presence, whatever you all are doing? I'm not judging, I'm just saying there's multiple ways this is happening. Then I want you to think about your clients in different categories. Very often we create one-size-fits-all programs for our clients, and this isn't a time for that. Some of them are legitimately struggling and they're looking for questions. Even if they've been resistant in the past and haven't been going forward that much or that available, are they struggling right now? It's important that you're getting the message out that you're here to hear their problems, hear their concerns, and help provide solutions and at least partnership. Some are hostile. Some are hostile because they know they screwed up. Some people are hostile because they know they should have been armed with better information. They should have brought your product earlier, or they should have been using it better, or their neck is actually on the line. We don't know why, but when people are emotional, it's time for you to become more calm and more helpful. Ask them how you can help them best. We'll talk about that more in just a minute, but it's a fact that some are hostile, angry, but most of that comes out of fear, confusion, and their own insecurities. So don't take it personally. The next thing I want you to think about is those that are closed, or at least their doors are closed. There are different ways to handle each one of these clients. Don't try to handle everyone with the same program. If they're closed for business, ask how you can help them best or serve them solutions to do so. And again, we'll talk about some of these ideas momentarily. Hope everybody's enjoying this so far. This is not probably not the most enjoyable conversation I've had to ever have, but I do hope that it's beneficial to all of you. So as you assess, first thing is back to where are my stats? You've got your information, but analyze that data very critically and carefully. Don't look at the same 5 or 10 bits of data that you've looked at in the past. Go deeper, go wider, ask others for their insight on it also. Next, I want you to think about your available assets. There's a lot of information out there at your fingertips if you only make yourself aware of it and if you only go use it. So I want you thinking about ramping up your readership time. Take some quiet time each morning or at the end of the day and read through what others are experiencing, other solutions, and take full advantage. Many of these things are free. I'm happy to share anything that I have with you, any of the access points I have. I know that I don't start the day without reading my Wall Street Journal, NADA gets cracked open, and Automotive News, and that's just for a start. Next, as you're assessing, I want you to think about adding others. Very frequently, we make our decisions in silos, and those silos are a very tight group of people. It's time now to reach out and bring others into the conversation. Product doesn't have any meetings by themselves right now. Marketing doesn't have any meetings by themselves. Sales, so it's time for everybody to be at the table with the leadership team, and it's also time to pull in subsets of those people that are out there, because they might have their finger on the pulse of it better than your leadership team. And if you don't believe me, just have one of those meetings and find out what you can whiteboard with those people. Next, I want you to think about agility. I'm going to talk straight at my vendors right now about their some of the words that I hear about your dealers. You tell me that they're not agile, that they don't move very quickly, or they move too quickly sometimes, and they don't do it with a lot of care. But I'm going to ask you right now, vendors, my dear partners, how's your agility looking? Because right now, it's very easy once your company gets started to lose that flexibility, lose that agility, and start thinking things are what they aren't. So we'll talk about that more shortly. Right now, I want to circle back to point one there, assets. Here we are. This was something that I thought everybody should see. If you were not already aware of it, please take a screenshot of this, or snap a picture with your mobile device. But NADA.org has launched a coronavirus subsite for you. Tons of great information here. How many of you already knew this? Let's see some hands. How many of you, well, let's see your hands if you hadn't already seen this. You can do the little icon where you're raising your hand. This is here, tons of great information. Why is this so important? Because the government pieces are in here, very much in advisory, profitability, retention assistance for employee retention credit. I want you to all know this is right here for you, and this is just one of the things that you can get. Again, this is at NADA.org / actually coronavirus. If you go to their site, just to NADA.org, you'll still find it right at the very top. I so much appreciate this organization and what they do for all of us every day in DC and beyond. So now let's go into assessing some more. I employ data and behavior anytime I'm developing strategy, but part of my secret sauce is I always take it times the reality of the situation that you're in. Because data is one thing, behavioral principles is another, but there's a reality. Each of you is operating. I'm looking at the companies, the enterprises that I'm seeing on here, just unbelievable. You guys are fantastic. But you each have your own reality, and so do your clients. So each of you needs to look at your data plus your behavior, and then take that times. Why do I say times a reality? Because that's your exponential secret sauce factor. Because you can have the best data, you think, and the best program for executing, but if you don't understand the specific environment and reality, I call it, for each of your products and how that matches up with each of your clients, then it doesn't even matter. So to have a true strategy, the kind of strategy that I employ here at Foster Strategies Group, that's my formula. So I'm giving you my secret sauce here. So your new normal, why is there a baby here? Somebody's saying, sorry, but what their new normal is, guess what? You don't know how to run yet in this new normal. Shoot, we can barely walk. So it's okay to just acknowledge that you're in a very steep learning curve. Your first steps won't be your best, I promise you that. But I promise you, just by having the goal to roll out this ACT program, you will get there and more quickly. Next thing I'm going to say, and this is sort of a double-faced, double-sided conversation. Remove any negative encumbrances, things that you knew that you needed to get rid of anyway in your organization. It's time to let go. I call it lead balloons in your head, anything that's been bogging you down right now, table it or just get rid of it for now. And if there are negative people influencing you, and that means whether it's an employee or a dealer, client, both ways. For my dealers, if it's a customer that's just driving you nuts, right now it's time to part company graciously with them. I'll say graciously again, but do part company, because you do not have time or mental resources for things that are just going to cause you frustration right now. So remove any negative encumbrances. Next, I'm kind of being tongue-in-cheek, but really Q1 and Q2 have been kebabbed here. I don't know how else to put it. Sliced, diced, wrecked, ruined. But I want you to think about setting your goal to maybe start another fiscal new year in July, for those of you who can. Because I've got a study I'm going to show you in a minute that shows you why that's going to be important. Because if your people are up against unrealistic goals, Like some of you understand like the manufacturer goals, they don't factor in everything that's going on, or your dealership organization's goals with some of the public groups. They're not factoring in that you're a dealership in the north and the same Mercedes dealership in the south. They're in a different set of circumstances, but we're holding everyone to the same set of logic and guidance. So I want you to think about, is it time to do a reset on your year? Now let's talk about agility again. As you assess, I want you to think about your own agility. Dealers that are on board, I want you to talk. Many of you think we always do it with muscle, and we say things like bell to bell, and we did a hard push at the end of the month. But right now, I'm not talking about muscles. So I should actually cross out that muscle and have, this is about your mind. This is about your mind. How is your mind doing? It's not just about how hard are you willing to work, how hard are you willing to think is what's in play right now. Then I want you to think about your organization's agility. Have you become too distant from change? Have you become too complicated? Do you have too many steps and layers that people have to go through? Is your organization siloed? Are you listening? Do you have active listening in? And how quickly can you make adjustments in a time such as this where we need to change quickly? So that is our A section. Now that you are done, or at least you've begun the work of assessing, let's go take a look at communication. Communication right now, it starts internally. You cannot launch anything externally until you have this button down. So let's go through quickly. AHOD means what? All hands on deck. You're going to have an all leadership meeting, all hands on deck. These meetings are going to happen at a cadence that's probably daily, for some cases, multiple times a day right now. But you're going to make sure that everyone is informed, advised, and is contributing. Once you start to develop plans, you're going to actually put them down into words that you can print, email, and share. Your employees and your clients need to see not just what you're going to say, but that you took the time, thoughtfulness to write it down, and that will increase their confidence and believability in anything that they read and hear from you after this. All company meetings need to be happening at a cadence that you needed to decide, but probably whatever you're thinking is a good cadence and a good clip, probably more. So think about the cadence and think about frequency. Go to the edge of your comfort zone with that. Next is, yes, you're having these all company meetings, but you've got to go one-on-one with your people. Leaders, you've got to get one-on-one with your VPs, your directors, your managers. Managers, you've got to get one-on-one with your people, especially when it comes to the AEs that are going to be directly interfacing with your clients. And if you don't know why, I'm going to tell you more why that's important. Because then and only then can we throw them to the wolves and begin external conversations. So when we're talking about the communication, let's talk about those C's of communication change. First of all, we've got to consider our audience internally and externally. What are their fears? What are their needs? What can we do? How agile are we being? How clear? And then how clear are we being with that message? Back to clarity again, we've got to make sure that not just we understand what we're saying, but it's easily disseminated to our teams with clarity and to our desired audience, our clients. Next, how much confidence do you have that your teams can deliver that well? Next, we're going to say communicate. Now your team, your AEs or whomever, start communicating. If you're in a dealership, your salespeople are communicating with customers. But how well can they communicate that? So it's imperative that you do playback with them and make sure that they've got it well and can deliver it well, so that your end user has the confidence also in that person delivering the message. Very often in our silos at the top, we think that this message is really clear, but then we don't understand how it goes out to our greater audience. Now, here's another piece of communication you might be surprised by. Some of your dealers are going to want, or your clients are going to want, some concessions. Just like in a dealership where there's no price reduction without a TO to a manager, there are no concessions without conversations. If you have customers that are saying, we want to talk about a price cut, or we want to cancel, this is the time for things to go upstream, but I want you to have your strategy in place before you do that. So this is a time that we say, sure, we are absolutely prepared to talk to you, but do not make any concessions without conversations upstream. As leaders, you need to know what's happening. And some of your AEs are fantastic people, but because they're afraid of losing the client, they're going to go to what keeps them rather than what sustains them and sustains the company for the future. So let's talk about those teams that are interfacing with your clients or customers right now. It's important as you're communicating to them that you practice it out. Don't just tell them things. You want them to practice it. First of all, you need to practice it first before you tell them, but then practice going through the material with them. Objection handling, you've all done that before, but holy cow, there's an entirely new set of objections on the table. So it's important that you toss out all of those, whiteboard out what people are facing right now, and you need to help them come up with how to handle it, and you need to make sure they can answer that well. And again, referring back to tone and the words, make sure they've got that right and that they employ kindness, also thoughtfulness. You can come up with other words. Next, it's important that you manage expectations. It's important that you even say to your team right now, it would be pretty normal if we lost X amount of customers or X amount of revenue. Here's what we would like to set as goals, because our old goals at 100% will not get the job done. People are afraid right now. And also, as you're looking at these communications, include others in shaping those communications, and include others on listening and refining those communications and looking at the material that we're getting back from our clients. So we're all the way up to T now. Transformation begins. My goal, my hope, my vision for you is that we emerge stronger together by employing these tactics. There are new opportunities at hand if you look at it that way. Step back. There are new needs in place. It's time to maybe reimagine or introduce some new or additional pricing models. It's time to, when I talk about service levels, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a tiny bit of a tangent here, but I have watched as vendors reduce service levels over the last several years to keep their profit margins in place. Right now, hold on, water. Right now, it's more important than ever that you ramp up your service levels, even if it's at a cost. When you give greater service, people push back less on price. Do not ever be teased in a corporate meeting with corporate leaders, one company to the next, the vendor company to the client. Never believe them when they say, oh, we don't need your training anyway. We've got this. Here's what I'm going to tell you from inside out experience. No, they don't. No, they don't. You need to deliver your own service. Never make that part of price concessions going forward. It's also important now that you work on increasing your value. How are you going to do that? You're going to ask them how you can increase your value. You're going to do everything you can, and then you're going to ask your clients, how do we serve you better now and in the near future? And then I want you to remember too, it's all about your people. It's time to care for your people inside and out better than ever to emerge stronger, even when those people are going to be potentially on the shelf for a little bit. When we talk about transformation, vendors, I'm talking right to you. It's been easy, sometimes sad, to hear the conversations about dealers and what they don't do, and they're not ready for online retail, and they don't do this, and I'm not sure why they do that. And I want you to know, as you sit here today, maybe you're finding out that change isn't as easy when it's our turn as vendors. It's not as simple. It's more complex. There are many, many different plates you're spinning right now. Welcome to the dealer's everyday life. So when it comes to transformation, first you need to look internally and at the people around you and at your own company. What does that transformation need to look like? What do we need to do? What could we do to completely change the way we imagine our business with our people? I didn't say our products, maybe that's part of it, but I want you to think about that. How do we transform our partnership with our dealers? Our dealer partners, I would ask you to think about your relationships with your vendors differently. Not do you get along with them? Are you fully capitalizing and maximizing the value of the products and services they've sold you? Or like our brain, are you only using 8% of it when truly, as it's available with our vendors, you could at least be using 50% of their services. Most of you, like I said, are barely using 8% of any product or service that you're purchasing right now. And that's why vendors, it's easy for them to cancel you, because they're not as fully invested in understanding, learning, and using what it is you offer. So let's look at transparency. Transparent conversations sound like this. I haven't done enough for you in the past. I haven't made it clear how important it is for you to understand our product. I listened to you when you told me that you, quote, had it and you were going to teach your people. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that's on me. I wasn't doing my job. And when you can explain it like that and share that level of transparency and honesty, dealers will listen. They are some of the most wonderful, caring, committed people in the world when you're honest with them and upfront. So now let's take a look at additional transformation. Let's take a look at the timelines like we talked about, and the time that you're currently spending building relationships, deepening relationships, providing service. What are the tools right now that you have on hand? Since you have some time that's a little different right now because of this situation, what are tools that you can employ to help your dealers to build valuable? How are you leveraging technology to get in front of them on a more frequent basis? Are you building assets out that they can go to a library and learn on their own or learn quickly? They can learn something in less than the time it would take them to call you and have a conversation. Use these as teaching moments internally and externally to ask yourself, how do I build my teams better during this time? And how do I also, because of all of those activities, build trust? So right now, some of you, the hardest thing is going to be letting go of what you knew was the winning formula, because right at this moment, that is not an option. Right now, you need to explore additional options on how to be successful inside this nightmare of a situation that we have found ourselves in. It's important also to get agreement from others that we are going to try new things, and agreement that, as one of my friends taught me a long time ago, if we're going to make an omelet, we're going to break a few eggs. We're not going to get it all right, but agreement to be kind and thoughtful to each other, agreement that we're going to make some mistakes in this new reality. And finally, it's going to take some courage. It's going to take courage to sometimes be the person that puts their hand up in the room and says, I know that's how we did it, but I have some ideas on how we might be able to do it going forward. It takes courage to tell your dealer clients, I'm committed to doing more for you. There are things I left on the table. It takes courage as a dealer to say to their teams, I owed you more. I owed you, my teams. I owed that I expected more out of you to learn more, to become more. I needed to develop you more. I can't just expect you to do it on your own. And it takes courage to have that kind of honesty with people. So next, as we start to get ready to close, I want you to think about, this is a study, got to go back one, a study out of Harvard Business Review. I'll let you review it later, but it talks about keeping your goals realistic, especially in challenging times. Because if we do not readdress our goals right now, your team is more likely to fail at a greater scale than they would have otherwise. So small wins right now is the name of the game. Small wins will get you farther right now. Small measurable wins where your team can feel good about what they're doing and they can feel like, okay, we are making progress. It works by building momentum and energy and resources and fostering an environment that allows them to take on bigger, more ambitious goals later, or at least when the situation at large starts to improve. So check out this article. I've got the link available for you here. I think you'll like the entire article that I pulled this from. Next, transforming your partnerships. Some of you have seen me saying transforming automotive partnerships for a long time. I want you to think about vendors. I want you to apply some of what you talk to dealers about. I've heard you say for dealers that they have certain expectations, but that's not what they reward. So pay plans don't align with what we really want to accomplish. So what do you want your people to do? What do you want those outcomes to be? And what are you rewarding and recognizing, and I will add paying for? It's time also to cultivate new expectations. What was normal before isn't normal anymore. And I think one of the largest things that I want to give you is you are making assumptions, whether you're a dealer or a vendor, that your people are in a continuous improvement learning arc. Too many people take a job, take a role, and we won't even begin to talk about placing people into roles that they were ill-equipped to handle. That's another conversation. But it's time for you to take a more active role in making sure new expectations are not only in place for continuous improvement, but they're being checked and rewarded and recognized also. You also need to increase your culture of contribution, include the many, not the few, in your conversations. And in the contributing process. It's time to review your client's success metrics. What does success really look like, especially right now? Don't say, oh, well, we've got a normal amount of churn. We've got a normal amount of price requests. What does it really need to look like? And what do new client success metrics need to look like? Include in those things, not just the volume of visits, but the depth and the breadth of the visits. There are new patterns we can look at. I can help you with this after this conversation. I'm going to give you one of my another one of my big secret sauce things as we start. Again, we're getting close to closing out here. One of the things I do when I go in is I create an entirely new cadence of client communications and care and thoughtfulness. Whatever type of client it is, where they are in their arc with using your products and services, it's time to readdress all of this, and you circle in your sales, product, and marketing teams, all of them in this. This is a whole topic on its own, but I wanted to at least introduce this concept to you right now. Then I want you to think about seeking collaboration with allied partners. Many of you literally are better together with someone else. It strengthens your position with the dealer, the client, by saying when you use our product plus this other product, it actually has an exponential set of results and success for you. So now, I know we've gone through this quickly, but friends, I just wanted to get this information into your hands. We can always talk more later. But now that we've looked at where we are, I hope that you don't feel as much as things are beyond our control right now. I hope that by thinking about assessing, communicating, and transforming, your future state is already starting to look better. And I want you to think, how soon can you get there? What am I doing? What is Foster Strategies doing? This. We're doing this. Please share this. If this has been beneficial, please share it with others. I'm going to do it again Monday just because so many people were wanting it on Thursday and Friday and they just couldn't. So we're doing it Monday also. Next week, I'm launching a leadership event. You'll read more about that on LinkedIn and in an email. Starting probably Monday, I'll launch that. I'm always available for calls. You are my friends if you're on this call. I'm always available for collaboration and support with from client to client, vendor to vendor. I will always believe in my better together philosophy. It's not just a cute idea. It's a way I approach life. And I hope you're feeling this here. And I'll continue pressing and being a thought leader and sharing this information with you as best I can. That also includes I need to hear from you. And I learned so much from others. That being said, I want to thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can ask them right now. For those of you who want to stay on, and for those of you who need to go, I want to thank you so much for taking the time at the end of your busy week to get out here to learn something new and hopefully be able to go out and contribute to others. So I'm not seeing any questions that come in other than for the audio questions that we had earlier. Let me see, I'm going to give it one more look. And no, so on that note, I'm going to wish you all the very best Friday, the best weekend, and just know we are better together. I will be here always to give you that extra guidance and support. And please know there are many, many people around you to do the same. Thank you all so much. And from Foster Strategies Group, Lori Foster, and I'm wishing you the very best day. Take care and all the best to you. For those of you still on, if you need my information, it's on the deck here, Lori at fosterstrategiesgroup.com. My mobile 269-217-0414. Thank you again.